Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Peter Guerrero. Guerrero was shot to death on Monday, August 23, 2021, in the 1000 block of North Hacienda Boulevard in La Puente, according to LA County coroner records. Salvador Vasquez was subsequently arrested and charged with the murder. The following is the evidence at trial. On August 23, 2021, LA County Sheriff Detective Brian Rex responded to the La Puente motel and observed the car stopped in the center divider of the street. The murder victim, Peter Guerrero, was in the driver's seat of the car and a woman was in the passenger seat. The victim had sustained a gunshot wound to his chest and was unresponsive. The police did not recover any weapons from the victim, the woman, or the scene of the shooting. Detective Eric Saavedra reviewed security video from the La Puente motel and recognized the defendant as the person depicted in the video. Detective Saavedra had previously encountered defendant 6 times between May and July of 2021 and knew that he had a large letter tattooed on the back of his head, as well as tattoos on the left side of his neck and his left arm. On August 25, 2021, Detective Nathan Abarca and his partner were on patrol in La Puente when they encountered defendant driving a Dodge Charger. Detective Abarca knew that defendant was the subject of an arrest warrant and pursued the car. The deputies temporarily lost sight of defendant's vehicle, but eventually located it parked in the street. Sheriff's deputies found defendant hiding under a van and arrested him. Detective John Duncan, who was assigned to investigate the victim's death, compiled surveillance video from the La Puente motel from the day of the shooting. The prosecution introduced the compilation video as evidence at trial. Detective Duncan identified defendant as the shooter in the video. The shooter had a tattoo of the letter P on the back of his head, as well as tattoos on the left side of his neck and left arm. Those tattoos matched the tattoos that Detective Duncan observed on defendant following his arrest. The shooter in the video also had a mark on his left cheek, which matched a mark that Detective Duncan observed on defendant following defendant's arrest. By the time of trial, defendant had obtained a tattoo that covered that mark. During his testimony, the detective described certain portions of the video, which the prosecutor played for the jury. The video showed that when the victim drove into the parking lot, the defendant was smoking a cigarette at the motel. The victim had an animated conversation with a woman in front of a motel room before he returned to his car and began driving away. Defendant subsequently made several movements with his hands towards his waistband and walked towards the passenger side of the victim's car as the car drove towards the driveway of the motel parking lot. Defendant pulled out a firearm from his waistband as he approached the victim's car, which stopped at the edge of the driveway. After the defendant reached the vehicle, he spoke briefly with the car's occupants, placed his left hand on the top door frame of the passenger window, stepped back, raised the gun, fired once into the car, and ran away. The victim's car then rolled toward the center divider in the street. Detective Duncan recovered a cigarette butt from the location where the video depicted defendant dropping his cigarette. Subsequent DNA testing indicated it contained defendant's DNA. Defendant testified and admitted that he shot the victim. He asserted, however, that he did so in self-defense. On the day of the shooting, defendant went to the motel to hang out with some women who could be seen in the video. Defendant had a firearm in his waistband for protection. At the motel, defendant witnessed the victim speaking aggressively to defendant's friend. Although defendant wished to leave the motel, he heard the victim yell "what's up" at him aggressively. Defendant approached the victim's car with a gun in hand and said "what's up." The victim then said, "Who the fuck do you think you're looking at?" And when defendant responded that he didn't know the victim replied, "That's right, you don't know me, I'll fucking smoke you." Defendant saw the victim raise something black in his hand. Believing the item to be a gun, defendant raised his gun and fired once, striking the victim. During his direct examination, defendant admitted to having been previously convicted of attempted robbery and being a member of the Puente criminal street gang. Following the trial, the jury convicted defendant Salvador Vasquez of second-degree murder, 2 counts of possession of a firearm by a felon, and 1 count of carrying a loaded firearm in public by a felon, including gun allegations. The court sentenced him to 39 years and 4 months to life in prison. Peter Guerrero was 48 years old at the time of death.